When the first rays of sunlight touched the quiet streets of the small town of Willow Creek, a tiny abandoned kitten with dusty white fur and pale blue eyes wandered alone in search of food, frightened by every passing car and every barking dog, until she collapsed from exhaustion outside a local bookstore, where a lonely widowed schoolteacher named Daniel found her trembling beneath an old wooden bench. He gently picked her up, wrapped her in his jacket, and whispered, "You don't have to be alone anymore." From that moment on, the kitten, whom he named Lily, became his entire world. Every morning, she waited by the window until Daniel finished making coffee. Every afternoon, she greeted him at the front door before he could even reach the porch. And every evening, she curled up on his lap while he read stories aloud, even though she could never understand the words. The neighbors often laughed and said Lily behaved more like a loyal friend than a cat, but Daniel would simply smile and reply, "Love doesn't need language." Years passed peacefully until one winter morning, Daniel suddenly collapsed while walking to work and was rushed to a hospital in another city. In the confusion, Lily escaped the house and ran through the snowy streets until she reached the bus stop where Daniel had disappeared, believing he would come back the same way he had left. She waited there until sunset, then through the freezing night, ignoring the cold wind that covered her tiny paws with ice. The next day she was still there, and the day after that as well. Kind strangers offered food, volunteers from shelters tried to rescue her, and local shop owners built a small wooden box to protect her from rain. But every evening, Lily climbed out and sat facing the road, her eyes fixed on every bus that arrived. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and eventually years passed. Children who had once fed her grew into adults, shop owners retired, buildings changed colors, and buses became newer. Yet Lily never abandoned her post. Her once soft white fur slowly faded to gray, her steps became slower, and her hearing weakened. But the hope in her eyes never disappeared. One young journalist noticed the faithful cat and wrote an article titled "The Guardian of the Bus Stop," and soon thousands of people visited just to witness the incredible loyalty of the little animal who refused to stop believing. Donations poured into local shelters because of her story. Families adopted abandoned pets after hearing about her, and artists painted murals celebrating unconditional love inspired by the lonely cat. Unknown to everyone, Daniel had survived but suffered memory loss after his accident and spent years recovering in a rehabilitation center far away. One afternoon, while watching television, he saw a documentary about the famous cat waiting endlessly at a bus stop in Willow Creek. The camera zoomed in on Lily's aging face, and in an instant, memories flooded back into his mind like a river breaking through a dam. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he whispered her name for the first time in years. Without hesitation, he returned to his hometown on the earliest available bus. As it slowly approached the familiar stop, Lily, now old and fragile, lifted her head one last time. Her cloudy eyes searched through the crowd until they met Daniel's face. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stand still. Despite her weak body, she rose to her feet and walked toward him with quiet determination, every step carrying the weight of years of waiting. Daniel knelt on the pavement, arms open, unable to hold back his tears as Lily gently rubbed her face against his hand exactly as she had done the day they first met. Bystanders watched in complete silence, many crying openly as they witnessed a reunion that had survived time, distance, and impossible odds. Daniel carried her home, placed her favorite blanket beside the fireplace, and stayed awake all night, stroking her fur while thanking her for never giving up on him. Just before dawn, Lily looked into his eyes one final time, let out a soft purr, and peacefully closed hers forever, as if she had been waiting all those years for nothing more than the chance to know her best friend had finally come back. Daniel buried her beneath the blooming apple tree in his garden and carved a simple message into a stone. She never stopped believing. The story spread around the world, reminding millions that true loyalty asks for nothing in return, that real love measures time not in days or years, but in faith, and that sometimes the smallest heart can teach humanity the greatest lesson of all. The deepest form of love is simply choosing to stay, even when every reason to leave has already arrived. What did you think of the story?